Welcome, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Unmanned Uncovered. This is your host, Stephen Gloss, drone subject matter expert consultant, content creator, and podcast producer for Consortic, a company built to help you discover a better way to do things with drones. With me on today's show is Joseph Marshall. Joseph is the director of UAS operations for Zipline at North Carolina in the United States. He's also worked as the worldwide training and standards manager for Amazon Prime Air. Joseph Marshall, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. How you doing, Joseph?
I'm doing fantastic. Really appreciate you having me today.
Well, Joseph, could you provide us a little bit of background as to how your journey with drones began? Did you start out with, the unmanned field being your primary career track, or how did that all progress?
No, not at all. Drones were not on my radar whatsoever. I started my career wanting to fly commercially in the airlines. I got all my ratings, as a flight instructor, flew charter ops, had really no intent of making that change. But just through the natural progression of my career, I ended up, falling right into the drone space. So really how it ended up happening was when I was with Allegiant Airlines managing their safety management system programs, I naturally love tech. My wife's in tech. So followed the industry very closely. And, Amazon Prime Air, back in 2013, I believe it was, announced, their intent with their program. So followed it very closely. I'm always been an active LinkedIn user. Just reached out to a few people purely out of curiosity. Loved my job at Allegiant, loved what I was doing. The people I was working with were absolutely fantastic. But by reaching out, they, funny enough, reached back out to me and were looking for somebody to start building their safety program.
Awesome.
So long story short, I ended up taking the job, moved the family to, Cambridge, England, and that's where my journey began. So it was more or less just, the opportunity to move into tech, following just the tech space and drone space pretty closely, because I just absolutely saw the direction the industry was going.
Yeah.
And haven't looked back since. So it just ended up falling into my lap and taking the chance and the risk, and it's all worked out.
That's amazing. Well, Joseph, you worked your way up to the position you have today with Zipline. What are some notable experiences that have helped shape and mold you into the leader that you are today? Is there anything that really stands out?
I think it's really a diversity of experience. Everyone most focus on a single thread, and that's the typical theme, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
My single threaded focus was safety management systems, right? So I focused on that, but I also recognized that it was really important to put yourself outside of your comfort zone, really, because being put in uncomfortable situations typically fosters the most growth, both on a personal level and a professional level. So it was really, I think it's about the diversity of experience from starting as a CFI and flying charter operations, moving into safety management systems, both on the airline operations side, and the flight operations side, then moving into SMS for UAS and trying to figure out, well, how the heck do I apply this concept to unmanned systems, right? Because it's not just plug and play. You got to be creative. And then quickly I realized, one of the biggest gaps I recognized was we don't have any training. There's no standardization. There's no manuals. And if we want to scale, we have to do this. And I have no experience directly doing that. So I quickly made the determination, hey, I'm going to make this transition into training and standardization.
Nice.
It's a little bit of an unfamiliar field, but I feel that my background, I'll be able to really, learn rapidly and provide a tremendous benefit to the organization I was with at the time, which was Prime Air. But again, I was very uncomfortable in that situation. And then I just continued to learn from there. And I also made an effort to always work with people that are smarter than me.
Nice. Yeah.
You can learn a wealth from those individuals. There's a few people I worked with at Amazon Prime Air, Judd McDougall, Sean Cassidy, their chief pilot and the director of safety and operations, and incredible people. And I've learned a tremendous amount from them. And even at the airlines, the same thing. I'm great friends with their director of operations. He was a mentor at the time when I was in the airlines. And, so a combination of just diversifying your experience, putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations and surrounding yourself with incredibly smart people really enables you to learn. So when Zipline contacted me, I recognized this would be a pretty big step. And I, again, would be put in a very uncomfortable situation because I haven't been in this role before. I've been surrounded by people who have been in the role, but didn't have to take on those duties and responsibilities. So I knew it was going to be painful at times, and I was going to learn. And I can tell you over the past year and a half now, I've learned probably more than I have in my entire career because I've had to digest more CFRs and regulation and other aspects to try to take something,
Yeah.
that has a baseline because of our international experience, but apply it now into this new regulated structure under Part 135. So uh, that's kind of, I think that's kind of what shaped who I am today, is all of those things between diversity of experience, surrounding myself with good people, and just being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that willingness to like literally drink from the fire hose almost in a sense, and get uncomfortable. That's awesome. And I'm really happy that Zipline was willing to like, sort of take that risk with you, risk you putting you in a position where you didn't really have all the experience, but you had the dedication and the passion to make it happen. That's really cool. Well, Joseph, before we get into that specific role that you have with Zipline, there may be a few listeners, I might be shocked actually, but there might be one or two that don't really know who Zipline is. Can you just give a basic breakdown of your company and what your mission is there at Zipline?
Yeah, so we're a medical logistics company, and our mission is to provide. It's pretty ambitious, to provide every human on Earth with instant access to vital medical supplies.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's a very ambitious goal, but I mean it's a slow process, but you gotta stretch and again be uncomfortable, and I think that we're doing a great job of that. We're headquartered in South San Francisco, and we also have our U.S. Principal base of operations for our U.S. ops is here in the Charlotte area. To date, we've made over 100,000 deliveries, primarily in our international operations, and delivered more than or over 1 million products. Pretty astounding. And we're operating at scale in both Rwanda and Ghana, and very, very soon here in the US under Part 135, which we're very excited about.
That's really amazing. So how did you really end up with your current role with Zipline? Because as far as, the research I've done, I've watched the TED Talk done by Keller Ronaldo, the CEO at Zipline, and it's just the amazing work that's being done in Africa. And you can really get a sense of why medical supply delivery is so pertinent in those areas. But what does it mean for the future of Zipline that you now are pretty much leading UAS operations in the United States?
It's really about breaking down the barriers in a heavily regulated environment. And if we can understand how to successfully operate here in the US, it's only going to naturally enhance what we're doing internationally and break down barriers for future markets that may have a similar regulated environment like the US.
Yeah.
So the pain that we're going through now to get over these hurdles and start operating eventually at scale here in the US is really instrumental, and it is going to be painful, and it is painful, but it's the right thing to do for the organization and the industry as a whole. So yeah, that's really what this is about. And my role is really to bring some more traditional aviation knowledge and understand how to appropriately apply that knowledge into this UAS space or tech space, and find that middle ground, right? Because traditional aviation is written in blood, right? That's what they say. And then tech, they want to move very, very fast. They want to innovate. They want to change the world, as you hear a lot of people say.
Right.
And that's great, but it's about finding that balance. And I think my role has, and other roles that we've recently hired for has kind of brought in that expertise, but has enabled us to find that balance on a cultural level and an enterprise level, for how we do this appropriately, safely, and successfully.
Right. This is when you look at it as a whole, is there really, I don't know, this might be a facetious question, but is there really that much value and benefit for drone delivery, specifically medical supplies, in areas of the world like the United States, where we have developed infrastructure, we have roads, we have just a conglomerate mesh of, you click, pretty much get your items on demand from Amazon, UPS. Do we really need something like drone medical delivery?
I mean, that's a great question. And I think, one way to look at it is any successful or good business is continuously finding creative and beneficial ways to serve their customers. And essentially that's what we're doing in the US, right? We absolutely recognize, look, the supply chain is fantastic, right? And we're not going to have the same demand, and the model's not going to look exactly the same as in Africa, but so we're trying to find new and creative ways that are really going to be beneficial. And COVID-19, it's been absolutely unfortunate, but it's benefited us in the sense that it's actually brought to the surface and highlighted where those unique areas of benefit are.
Yeah.
And I don't think those things that have been surfaced are really necessarily going to go away anytime soon. And then I think we will naturally progress as we learn early on here. Once we're operating here to some degree in the US, we're going to learn very, very rapidly, and we have to be able to adapt to our customer needs and listen to our customer, right? We have, customers really come first, right? We have to listen to them, or we won't succeed as an organization. So yeah, I think a lot of this will be, and I'll speak more broadly around the UAS industry. I think a lot of these delivery services is going to be a convenience service, right? It doesn't make sense at this point in terms of, you're not going to get your groceries delivered. You're not going to get big bulk items. I think you will eventually, but
Yeah.
We're not to that point. So it will definitely be a convenience service, but we see the niche in terms of medical supplies for, individuals who perhaps can't go out because of mobility issues, or maybe they have a compromised immune system with COVID-19 and they can't be exposed and their medications dropped off. Sometimes a lot of medications, it's timely in terms of when they get there due to storage requirements, etc. So it's a great question. I don't have a perfect answer, but I think naturally and organically, us as a UAS industry are going to find new and creative ways to bring benefit to the customer and society as a whole.
Yeah, that's really cool. Joseph, what are some of the key objectives for Zipline this year, as COVID-19 doesn't really take a backseat, but thankfully it doesn't seem like it's as big of an issue as we get the vaccine rolling out there. But what are some of the objectives for this year and beyond? And what do you think are some of the biggest hurdles you'll have to overcome to achieve them?
Yeah, so this year, we're very, very, very close to obtaining our Part 135 certification, our type certification on our aircraft. And once we have those, the rest of this year is about expanding our operations. We've recently, partnered with Walmart in Arkansas. There's a few other partners out west, which we're going to be launching with this year. So it's at that point, once we're able to scale up a little bit, when we have our type cert and our 135, it's about continuing to expand our operational capabilities, our levels of safety, reliability, and just general operational maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and our team, we look at our operation no differently than a major airline looks at their crews and their aircraft. We really take it that seriously. And I think it's important that we think of it that way, or the FAA won't take it seriously, and our customers and just the general public. If they see a Zipline airplane,
society, yeah,
we want them to look at it and go, oh, it's just, it's like a helicopter flying over, or an airplane. Oh, there it goes, So yeah, so this year is really about just getting the certifications that we need, then just enabling a slow growth in support of our customers. But I have a feeling 2022 is really going to be the year when we really start bringing that whole new level of operational robustness, maturity, levels of safety, and enabling us to actually, really start scaling up here in the US.
Attention, drone pilots. Are you ready to earn your CAA-approved GVC or A2 CFC within the UK? From online exams to instructor-led courses, obtain the certifications you need to get your drone safely and legally into the sky. Book your course today at consorticcom.
I guess I could have asked you this a little earlier, but I think it's fascinating. Could you just give us a brief, description of what the aircraft does, what the delivery process looks like? And is that going to be the same as it is in Africa as it will be in the United States?
Yeah, it's very similar. It's an identical aircraft for the most part. We've had to make some changes for our type certification effort, but the aircraft that you typically see in some videos for operations in Rwanda and Ghana, right, is essentially what we are using here. It's a fixed wing aircraft, about a 10-foot wingspan. We have redundant motors, systems on board from GPS, flight computers. We have a parachute landing system on board, but it can fly roughly about 50 nautical miles in one direction. So it gives us, around 100 nautical miles. We cruise roughly around 60 knots. We carry, almost 4 pounds in terms of payload, about 2 hours of flight time. And it flies, it's highly automated or autonomous, in air quotes. So that's our aircraft. But essentially, we launch it from a launching system. It then travels, to its destination. We usually travel anywhere between 300 and 380 feet AGL. When it gets to its delivery location, it slowly descends anywhere from 60 to 100 feet AGL. It drops the package, our parachute delivery system, and our accuracy is roughly, believe it or not, two parking spots.
Wow.
Our onboard system takes into account different wind conditions and everything else, and it is able to compute the actual point at which it releases the package to give us that accuracy. But after it drops the package, it climbs back up to altitude again between 380 feet AGL, goes back to the site, and it recovers via our recovery system, much like an aircraft landing or an aircraft carrier.
Right. Yeah.
Catches the wire, and it's fascinating. Every time I see it, between the launch and the recovery, it's still every time I'm blown away. It is a lot of fun to watch. So that's a little bit of an overview about the Zip and how it works.
Yeah. One of the things that I really appreciate and admire about Zipline as a company, especially with operations in Africa, is that you've been able to take people from the indigenous population and actually train them up and teach them how to fly these aircraft. What are going to be some of that's going to probably be like black and white differences between pilots in Africa and pilots in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, we actually are going to be focused very similarly. When we hire for locations here in the U.S., we want to try to want to pull from that local talent, right? We want to be a partner in the community. I think that's very important. We don't want to just open a site and then bring people from different cities and parts of the country, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we really want to try to be focused on pulling from the actual community. I think that continues to build trust with the community, both on the societal and economic levels. But in terms of the pilots themselves, I mean, we're really focused on Part 107 remote pilots, but we're not just looking for a baseline. It's like, hey, 107. Anybody can go and get their 107, and that's fine. But somebody with their 107 who's actually had some level of real world experience, whether that's pipeline or infrastructure inspection, whatever it may be. What we've found is those who have a Part 107, RPC, and also bring to the table some real world operational experience, it goes a long way. Because for Part 135, for example, the operational structure and maturity, that's dictated by the regulations. It's really a fundamental aspect of being successful in this environment.
Yeah.
So we found that gaining experience in some of those other types of organizations, as I mentioned, like infrastructure inspection, really create a solid baseline where when we put them into our training program, which is designed to bring a Part 107 pilot up to commercial standards, that they're able to then go operate with a high degree of success and absolutely understand what's expected of them under the Part 135 umbrella.
So from all of that, what would be like your biggest piece of advice for those maybe interested in getting involved in this new Part 135 movement with likes of the companies of yours, with Amazon, with UPS? Like, what's the big thing that maybe a Part 107 pilot needs to be focused on right now?
Yeah, I think, airspace integration, it's an ongoing topic, and it's going to continue to be a topic, right? Safe integration into the airspace. So I think by creating a more robust knowledge set of not only what 107 provides, but also what you get from like a private pilot's license. And I'm not saying everyone go out and get their PPL, but I think making an effort to enhance your overall knowledge of a traditional aviation environment is going to give everyone an incredible baseline to work from, because having that really robust information and knowledge around airspace types, requirements, weather, all of those things really kind of then translate really well into this 135 space. And as I mentioned previously, like, get as much experience as you can, in other organizations who are performing, non-135 operations, power line and infrastructure inspections, whatever it may be, get that experience. And the big difference is, a lot of those, it's your hand flying. There might be some automation that, you're building in, versus what we're doing, it's highly automated or autonomous. So it is a little bit different, and really having that baseline knowledge is going to go probably the furthest of anything.
Yeah, totally on board with that. If we're going to integrate with manned aviation, we need to know as much about it as possible.
Absolutely.
So if you had to give an estimate, Joseph, as to how long you think it'll be before we really see a sky full of drones delivering us everything from medical supplies, Starbucks to pizza, and a whole host of like internet shopping deliveries, what's your timeline on that, if you had to just guess?
Yeah, I think I've said this before, the next 10 years is really, I think, going to be the golden age of UAS. Right behind it is UAM, urban air mobility.
Mm-hmm.
But I think over the next 10 years, we're going to see year over year significant progress being made. My prediction is that by 2030, we are going to have robust UAS delivery operations taking place throughout the United States. Now, I don't think it's going to be crisscrossing the skies everywhere. I think they're going to be in very specific regions that have, whatever airspace requirements are dictated at that time. But I think it's going to be readily available, definitely by 2030. But again, I think starting from now, year over year, we're going to see more and more capabilities being turned on. And as the regulatory environment and the operators evolve together, it'll just start happening faster and faster. So I don't have a perfect answer, but I feel with confidence that by 2030, this is going to be commonplace, and there's going to be clear rule sets around how to certify a vehicle, how to certify a UAS delivery operation. Because again, that's some of the pain we're going through. Like, early adopters such as Zipline, UPS Flight Forward, all, Wing, Amazon, we're going through all this pain now, but it's going to get to a point where it's as easy as, if you're a manned aircraft operator and you want to go open a 135, there's a clear path forward and there's no ambiguity, which is a lot of ambiguity, and we're working to eliminate that. But
yeah,
mark my words, 2030, you'll be able to get your Starbucks, pizza, medical supplies delivered to your house with ease.
That's awesome. Well, for my 2030 New Year's celebration, I'll have to dust this off the archives and give it a listen. See
there we go.
How close you were. Well, I've been asking you a lot of questions, Joseph, and I'm going to ask you, I've got 2 left for you, but this one I just think is fun. What's the question you get asked the most when talking to maybe just a stranger on the street about your job? Because it's still a very new thing to talk about with other people with, drones.
Well, I can tell you, when I even talk to my own family, my mom and dad, they still don't even understand what I do. So it's a constant, it's a constant conversation. But funny enough, when I'm talking to somebody, it always comes back to privacy, and that seems to be the biggest concern. It's not automation, it's not airspace. It's just, well, there's cameras. Are there cameras on board? Can it see me? Right? That's, and I get it. That's absolutely a concern. And we don't have any cameras on board right now, but I can tell you that will change. But it's going to be more around computer vision and identifying hazards on the ground, power lines, things like that, or cameras to detect aircraft, that we have to be able to detect and avoid. So I think it's going to just be part of the natural evolution of not only our operation, but other operations as part of the detect and avoid strategy for airspace integration.
Right.
But I always have to kind of walk it like, no, we're not looking in your windows. We're not doing any of that. And it comes back to commercial operators have something to lose, right? Like we can't be doing that. It's absolutely the wrong thing to do.
Yep, exactly.
Because there's a lot riding on it, and it will just put a bad taste in the mouth, not only the regulators, but the industry as a whole.
Right.
So that's probably the most common question that I get, surprisingly. But I would love to nerd out on airspace with everyone and a host of other things, but it always comes down to the caps.
That's funny. Well, Joseph, this is your last question for you today. Really appreciate your time, but I'm just curious, what has been one of the most rewarding experiences you've had while working for Zipline thus far?
Yeah, one of the reasons I originally came to Zipline, it was not only just an incredible opportunity for my career, but B, at the same time, it was an opportunity to do something bigger than myself for once. I never served in the military or anything along those lines, or emergency provider. So it was just an opportunity to again progress, continue to progress career-wise, but also do something bigger than myself. And that really came to light when I had the opportunity when I first started September, October of 2019, and I went to Rwanda.
Awesome.
And to see the true impact that we're having, in that market, it was mind-blowing, because we truly, absolutely every day are saving lives.
Wow.
And just to be in Africa and be exposed to a different way of life is tremendously impactful and changed me fundamentally as a person, and gave me a whole new appreciation of just the world and my environment.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the most incredible parts, of being part of this organization thus far, and as part of my experience, and again, you asked the question earlier, we might not be doing that same thing here in the U.S. to the same capacity in terms of saving lives like that.
Right.
But the work that we are doing is bringing to light new ways of conducting business and more higher levels of maturity in some instances, or safety as part of our certification efforts. And that's just going to translate into the current markets and future markets. And that will go a long way. So yeah, that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a humbling thought to think that, these aren't just, toys flying around and doing, burning circles in the sky, but they're making a legitimate, real life-saving difference in places around the world. That's so amazing. Well, Joseph, it's been awesome having you here on the show today. I admire everything that you guys are doing there at Zipline, your entire team, your global efforts. And I can't say enough about just the work that you guys are doing and really taking this industry, spearheading the efforts for Part 135 and beyond, and really taking a lead on a lot of things. So with that, do you have any closing comments?
No, just appreciate the time, and I'm just looking forward to working with everyone in the industry. We're in this together, and in the end, we'll come out on top, and we'll just be a new segment of the world of aviation. And when we look back in 2030, we'll laugh at all the pain and also the triumphs that we've had along the way. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Joseph, and thank you to all those listening to another episode of Unmanned Uncovered. This episode was brought to you by Consortic. Consortic specializes in drone services, remote pilot training, and UAS consultancy designed to provide you with safer, more efficient surveys and inspections. Go to consortic.com right now and find a better way with drones. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, share, and review this show. Your support makes all the difference in helping me uncover all there is to know about unmanned systems. That's all for this week. Stay tuned for next week's edition. And until next time, safe flying, everyone.